The Wood Beyond the World. Chapter 11. Walter happeneth on the mistress. It was but a little after noon when Walter left the maid behind. He steered south by the sun, as the maid had bidden him, and went swiftly, for, as a good knight wending to battle, the time seemed long to him till he should meet the foe. So an hour before sunset he saw something white and gay gleaming through the boles of the oak trees, and presently there was clear before him a most goodly house builded of white marble, carved all about with knots and imagery. And the carven folk were all painted of their lively colors, whether it were their raiment or their flesh, and the housings wherein they stood all done with gold and fair hues. Gay were the windows of the house, and there was a pillared porch before the great door, with images betwixt the pillars both of men and beasts, and when Walter looked up to the roof of the house, he saw that it gleamed and shone, for all the tiles were of yellow metal, which he deemed to be of very gold. All this he saw as he went, and tarried not to gaze upon it, for he said, belike there will be time for me to look on all this before I die. But he said also that though the house was not of the greatest, it was beyond compare of all houses of the world. Now he entered it by the porch and came into a hall many pillared and vaulted over, the walls painted with gold and ultramarine, the floor dark and spangled with many colors, and the windows glazed with knots and pictures. Midmost thereof was a fountain of gold, whence the water ran two ways in gold-lined runnels, spanned twice with little bridges of silver. Long was that hall, and now not very light, so that Walter was come past the fountain before he saw any folk therein. Then he looked up toward the high seat, and him seemed that a great light shone thence, and dazzled his eyes, and he went on a little way, and then fell on his knees, for there before him on the high seat sat that wondrous lady, whose lively image had been shown to him thrice before, and she was clad in gold and jewels, as he had erst seen her. But now she was not alone, for by her side sat a young man, goodly enough, so far as Walter might see him, and most richly clad, with a jeweled sword by his side, and a chaplet of gems on his head. They held each other by the hand, and seemed to be in dear converse together, but they spake softly, so that Walter might not hear what they said, till at last the man spake aloud to the lady. Sayest thou not that there is a man in the hall? Yea, she said, I see him yonder, kneeling on his knees. Let him come nigh and give some account of himself. So Walter stood up and drew nigh, and stood there, all shamefaced and confused, looking on those twain, and wondering at the beauty of the lady. As for the man, who was slim and black-haired and straight-featured, for all his goodliness Walter accounted him little, and nowise deemed him to look chieftain-like. Now the lady spake not to Walter any more than erst, but at last the man said, Why doest thou not kneel as thou didst erewhile? Walter was on the point of giving him back a fierce answer, but the lady spake and said, Nay, friend, it matters not whether he kneel or stand, but he may say, if he will, what he would have of me, and wherefore he is come hither. Then spake Walter, for as wroth and ashamed as he was, Lady, I have strayed into this land, and have come to thine house as I suppose, and if I be not welcome, I may well depart straightway, and seek a way out of thy land, if thou wouldst drive me thence, as well as out of thine house. Thereat the lady turned and looked on him, and when her eyes met his, he felt a pang of fear and desire mingled shoot through his heart. This time she spoke to him, but coldly, without either wrath or any thought of him. Newcomer, she said, I have not bidden thee hither, but here mayst thou abide a while if thou wilt. Nevertheless, take heed that here is no king's court. There is, forsooth, a folk that serveth me, or, it may be, more than one, of whom thou wert best to know not. Of others I have but two servants, whom thou wilt see, and the one is a strange creature, who should scare thee or scathe thee with a good will, but of a good will shall serve not save me. The other is a woman, a thrall, of little avail, save that, being compelled, she will work woman's service for me, but whom none else shall compel. Yea, but what is all this to thee, or to me that I should tell it to thee? I will not drive thee away, but if thine entertainment please thee not, make no plaint thereof to me, but depart at thy will. Now is this talk betwixt us overlong, since, as thou sayest, I and this king's son are in converse together. Art thou a king's son? Nay, lady, said Walter, I am but of the sons of the merchants. It matters not, she said, go thy ways into one of the chambers. And straightway she fell talking to the man who sat beside her concerning the singing of the birds beneath her window in the morning, and of how she had bathed her that day in a pool of the woodlands when she had been heated with hunting, and so forth. And all as if there had been none there save her and the king's son. But Walter departed all ashamed, as though he had been a poor man thrust away from a rich kinsman's door, and he said to himself that this woman was hateful and not loveworthy, and that she was little like to tempt him, despite all the fairness of her body. No one else he saw in the house that even. He found meat and drink duly served on a fair table, and thereafter he came on a goodly bed, and all things needful, but no child of Adam to do him service, or bid him welcome or warning. Nevertheless he ate and drank and slept and put off thought of all these things till the morrow, all the more as he hoped to see the kind maiden some time betwixt sunrise and sunset on that new day.